Not so long ago, someone gave me a challenge to test out a gaming phone and see how the camera performance is on clearly a phone that is focused on that gaming. And today we have one, and that's the Redmagic 11 Pro. Let's find out, with the limited hardware for the camera, how good this camera can be. You would think that a gaming phone with pretty basic camera hardware wouldn't be good at photography. Well, you wouldn't be wrong there, but we all know that when it comes to photography, camera hardware isn't everything. Skills matter as well. Now, when I say the hardware isn't great for this specific function, let's look at that camera hardware. We have a pretty acceptable main sensor with a 15 megapixel resolution, an f-stop of 1.9 and a 1/1.55 inch sensor size, 23mm equivalent. We then have a 50 megapixel ultra-wide with an f-stop of 2.2, a 1/2.88 inch sensor size and 14mm equivalent. To then, well, a 2 megapixel macro that honestly shouldn't be here. Now, what makes this naturally a gaming phone is the unique proper liquid cooling. This is kind of the desktop we see compared to laptops. It has proper liquid cooling and vapor chamber on top of that, where a lot of phones just come with vapor cooling itself. Next to it, it actually has a fan that spins at a max of 24,000 RPM. Then of course it features the latest Snapdragon, the Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5. 256GB up to 512GB with sadly no expandable memory here. And in terms of RAM, it's 12GB up to 16GB. And there's a lovely part for headphone jack lovers as well. It has a 3.5mm headphone jack. This means there is no double dongle situation. You can charge and listen to music at the same time while you're gaming. Though charging shouldn't be an issue with a crazy 7500 mAh battery inside, allowing you to also charge it up at 80 watt. Naturally, you can look at the camera hardware and think, oh, this is not going to be good, especially with the limitations that you are given. But where's the fun in that? Let's challenge myself and see what a gaming phone can actually do when it comes to the camera. And of course, we'll be covering the phone itself, the gaming performance itself, and of course how this water cooling works on my other channel. But let's find out what this camera can actually do. Now, I wanted to start this video with this awkward angle because you can see the effect of the camera being below the display. Anyway, this is of course the Redmagic 11 Pro, the first phone with liquid cooling, and also a very hidden front-facing camera with its limitations. As you can see, quality isn't great. We have 1080p 30 frames per second max. But yeah, let's test out how this performs when it comes to a camera, because that becomes really interesting to see how this gaming orientated phone with the world's first liquid cooling performs when it comes to that. It's gonna be a challenge. So when it comes to testing a camera out like this, I want to create different situations and see different environments, and OpenMSim has that downside. Says a lot is currently closed. One sec. Anyway, a lot is closed currently when it comes to the OpenMSim. This means that there are limitations in what I can showcase like in this area. We're going to test it out in a little bit of a different setting as well to see how this camera performs. But naturally, yeah, this isn't going to be the greatest camera performance compared to a lot of other phones that tested. But naturally also, I have to keep in mind this is a gaming phone, and that's the focus. This setup is a bit hard to showcase. I want to get low to the water and get some of that algae in there and then the trees around it. And if you use Pro mode, you get something like this. I'll showcase it properly, of course, on the screen as well. That's actually quite nice.
now, having used this phone for a while. I'm gonna find, of course, situations that I can use in my benefit, but also use Pro mode quite a bit more to get the best out of it. What I really like here is the contrast of autumn around the light source itself, and then have, of course, the blackness of the light source. It's not unsettly, but still I think it works really well for a setup like this, especially with the limitations that a phone like this has. Beautiful contrast with the lake, the road, the houses, and of course the trees behind it. Gives a really good contrast. Let's take a shot of that. This setup we're doing for the reflection, a little bit of that beautiful contrast in the background. Again using Pro. Ooh, the fallen leaf, I got that. So this is where you can use like the ultra wide. You get close to the light source itself. I wish the trees were a little bit more coverage of the sky itself, because you will get blown out sky effect. Because simply put, there are a lot of clouds in there, but try to center this as much as you can and create like a little bit of a dramatic look where this looks really stretched out. Now the limitations that are on, of course, this Redmagic 11 Pro is having those sensors missing, especially the telephoto. It's a downside for something where you want a great composition of something that has more zoom to it, like a compression to the shot. That becomes really hard if you are missing a proper telephoto. So that makes it another challenge. So a setup like this, you kind of want to follow these lines that follow that path. Right, with a 23 it's too cropped in, but then you get a 5x digital, you see a little bit what I mean, but naturally with a 5x digital it's gonna hurt the image quite a lot, because it is a 5x crop.
Daytime photography, realistically for any phone, should be decently easy to handle, even with the limitations that are given and the processing clearly not being on par with the best out there. It's in low light, however, that you can truly see the effect of something like this. And again, here we are where I would say, no, it isn't great. You can get some glare in the shot, and the ultrawide simply looks poor and really soft, and then the colors are pretty poor as well in some shots. But you know what? Every now and then a shot comes along that is perfectly fine, unless you start really paying attention to the small details. So while my conclusions stay the same, do not buy this phone if the camera matters to you. If you want to take casual shots, you know what? Every now and then, and if you know how to create a composition, you can get some fine shots out of it, especially with the main camera. Just nothing that can compete with the top dogs in mobile photography. Probably still good enough though to beat the ultra wide of the iPhone 16 Pro.
Okay, 60 frames per second on the main camera. Naturally, again, I cannot switch to the ultra wide during the recording. Colors seem very yellow, comparison to what it is in reality, at least on the phone itself. But again, this isn't a phone that is going to be really good when it comes to that camera. But naturally, let's showcase this for those who want to know what the max capability of this is. Now 4K 60 frames per second, starting with the ultra wide. And you want to know what's funny? I can now go to the 23, but the 23, as you can see, is a lot darker, so it makes me assume that this is a crop on the ultra wide instead of actually going to the ultra wide. Let me stand still and showcase it. And this is now native 4K 60 frames per second straight away from the main camera. So definitely when you go from the ultra wide to 23mm equivalent, it's cropping in to that ultra wide instead of switching lenses. Now 4K 30 frames per second, and still I cannot switch to that ultra wide. So yeah, there is no possibility in that 4K resolution to do so. I have an idea. Let's see what I did there. And just for the fun of it, front-facing camera. This is not going to be a good front-facing camera, we all know this. But in trade-off, you get a camera that is completely hidden. It's really hard to see. Yeah, can you see it? A little bit, but honestly, for someone who hardly uses this is fine.
So realistically, when it comes to the end of a video like this, I will say, of course, the Redmagic 11 Pro isn't going to be an amazing camera. It's not going to be a great one either. It's just going to be something you can shoot with, but nothing more than that. My hack for the phone, however, is that you use Pro mode most of the time. It will do less of the processing, and therefore you get more of a shot that you can work with, and then of course allow some editing on the shot itself and get some of that color to it, a little bit of pop, and maybe a little bit more contrast to the shot itself. By default, naturally, it isn't that good. Apart from that though, when it comes to the camera, if you play around and if you know how to play with the angles of the shot itself, you will get some pretty decent shots. Actually, if you look at the full image, some perfectly fine shots. Either way, let me know what you think about this Redmagic 11 Pro. This is an interesting one when it comes to trying out the camera, because it's definitely been a challenge. But that's fun nonetheless. Now, before we go, I really want to thank my members. Thank you so much for the support. I really appreciate it. And of course, I will leave some raw files for you guys to check out on this Redmagic 11 Pro. Of course, if you want to become a member, you can by clicking join somewhere below. And of course, while you're down there and you aren't subscribed yet, don't forget to subscribe. We're getting closer and closer to the 30,000. So be sure to subscribe. It really helps out a channel like mine to like and interact and so on. Either way, again, I do hope that you enjoyed this video. And talk to you guys in the next.